if you're a player that struggles with a path that's excessively inside out or to the right as a right-handed golfer, I'm going to talk through a couple things you should be paying attention to help you neutralize that swing direction. So I think the first one probably we need to talk about is the hand path. And so the hand path is obviously kind of the path that the hands travel on in the backswing and in the downswing. And so if you're a player that tends to swing too far inside out, typically what I'll see is the hands will work from too deep of a position to out away from the player. And simply put, the way to start to neutralize this is to get the hands to work a little bit taller or more vertically in the backswing so that they have the opportunity to swing a little bit more inside the target line on the follow through instead of out to the right or even chase down the target line. So if that's you and you watch yourself on video and you get this club way too far back behind you with the hands, well then a great drill for you is to set up with your butt or your glutes up against the wall and practice making swings, maybe without a club first so you don't hit the wall, where the hands never really feel like they get behind your heels and touch the wall. And so if you can envision kind of a wall or a wall behind me, I'm just going to try and get my arms to work super vertically so that they don't hit the wall. That's going to reduce the amount of hand depth that you have or the amount the hands work behind you, and it's going to help you neutralize that swing direction. I see better players all the time get up to the top. They start to drop the hands excessively. Now their arms and hands are stuck behind them, and they push that path way out to the right, and they hit big blocks and big hooks. And so that's probably the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of players. But if that's not you, if you have the hands in a pretty decent spot, then we need to look elsewhere. And what I'll typically see from players with excessively inside-out paths is they struggle to rotate their body. And what I mean by that is they might rotate okay on the downswing, but when we watch them on the backswing, but when we watch them on the downswing, they struggle to get their chest and their hips open relative to where they started. And so when we watch tour players, we'll typically see the chest and hips a little bit open. Now, that's not every tour player, but the reason being open is beneficial is rotation on the downswing is actually a steepening element. And so if I just took my hands and placed them right here about halfway down in the downswing, and all I did was rotate 20 degrees more open, you can see how my hands push out in front of me, the shaft gets slightly steeper, and now my swing direction is actually aimed to be more outside in. And so rotation is certainly a steepening element on the downswing. So if you're someone, again, that doesn't rotate, well then obviously we need to add some element of rotation. The other benefit of rotation is we hear people talk all the time about wanting to exit left or exit to the inside. Well, if you get to impact and your chest is pointed behind the ball, to exit to the left, you're simply going to have to pull your arms in, and that's a super inefficient way to do it, and it feels super manufactured. So my recommendation is, hey, if we want to exit left, we've got to get the chest more open so that the hands naturally and the grip of the club naturally want to move more to the left. And so if that's you, if you need more rotation, I really like this drill where you put an object, a little bit of a taller object, just a little bit behind your lead heel. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and feel contact with the object. You can knock it over if you want. We're going to try and feel contact with the object before the club hits the ball. And that's going to ensure we're really extending this lead leg, pulling this lead hip up and out of the way, and getting that chest and those hips to open up. All right? But if you feel like you rotate well, and you feel like your hand path is pretty good, then we need to talk about early extension. And this is everyone's favorite topic, right? But if my pelvis is moving in toward the golf ball and my chest is moving up and out of it, A, I'm not rotating, and B, I'm giving all the chance in the world for this club to swing too far inside out. And here's why. As I start moving my pelvis in and my chest back, it actually has a shallowing effect to the club. So even though your hand path might be okay, you feel like you maybe rotate okay, if I'm early extending through the shot, I'm constantly pushing this club head further behind me, and it's going to cause my path to move excessively out to the right as a right-handed golfer. So how do we fix early extension? Well, I think I could make a 45-minute video on early extension, but the first thing to do is figure out why you might be early extending. And so if the shaft is in a steep position on the downswing and you're simply trying to shallow it back out, that could be one reason. If the face angle is way too open on the way down and you're just trying to give yourself time to close it, that could cause early extension. But if you feel like those variables are in a good spot, the shaft is shallowing in transition, the face angle is strong enough, well then we simply need to work on early extension. And that's where you might see drills on the internet where you put the chair behind you, you feel like your glutes push into the chair. Those are really good drills. And so the first thing though is I rarely see people just need that drill. Most people actually need to get variables in place prior. and that's where videoing your swing or a coach can obviously help. Now, there's one last thing that I see all the time on the lesson tee that causes players to swing excessively inside out, and I like to call it like the tilting pattern or the sliding pattern. And so what I want you to notice is I have this certain shoulder alignment at setup, and when I push my hips forward, my trail shoulder drops and my lead shoulder gets higher. So as I do that from down the line view, you can see my trail shoulder dropping and my lead shoulder getting higher. Well, there is some amount of hip slide needed in a golf swing. And so when I get up to the top, of course, I'm going to start to recenter and bump my hips slightly before I start to rotate. However, you can overdo this, and I see better players overdo this all the time. So what will happen is they'll get up to the top and they'll have an excessive amount of separation between the pelvis and the shoulders. And when they get to this point here, they've got a ton of tilting in the shoulders. And so as I show you what that looks like from down the line, I want you to watch what happens to the club. If I start down to about right here, and now all of a sudden I kick the pelvis forward and I let the trail shoulder drop, you can see how far the club wants to drop behind me, and now I'm in a world of hurt because I've got to push that path severely to the right. And so if that's you, another drill I like to do, the same object, is to sort of stop the hips from sliding excessively and feel like the chest stays more on top of the lower body in the downswing. Again, we get this excessive bump with the hips and the belt buckle sort of gets way in front of the chest or the sternum, and now we've got this crazy tilt. So simply put an object about a fist length away from your lead knee, and we're going to practice hitting shots feeling the chest stay on top and not bumping into the object. That's going to make sure you're not sliding excessively. So inside out path, it's a better player problem. However, it can be equally as frustrating. Try these out. Hope they help.